Mr. Schroeder.
You have your note sheet as you requested.
Yes, I do. I just got done printing it.
Sweet.
I don't like to show my face on camera. There we go. This is like all the notes we're taking today, right?
Correct.
It's just
It's the
okay.
normal thing that I would give you in class.
I only have like
You should be 2 pages.
boxes. I got 6 boxes.
Yeah, it's not that much today.
Oh, I forgot to print. Why did it not print the other page?
You'll have to figure that part out.
I don't know what's happening. I might have to reprint it.
Nevaeh, that profile picture, that's perfect. Good job.
Thank you. I changed it because I was kind of bored with my other one.
All right, here we go. The following people have not turned in a test. Elijah, you have not turned in a test. Kira, you didn't turn in your test. Gavin, you didn't turn in your test. Who else? Malachi, not turning the test. Lily, not turning the test. Keegan, not turning the test. Ace, not turning the test. Jasmine, not turning the test. And Noah, not turning the test. I can see most of you have viewed it, with exception, I believe it's just Elijah is the only one that has not, and Keegan not even viewed it. Hey, this will literally turn into a 0 today. Obviously, if you're watching this video, you've probably done your tests and have already graded it. I haven't graded Elizabeth's, Riley's, Jaden's, Josh's, Jameson's. I will grade those probably before 8 p.m. tonight. But if I called your name out, you have to take your test. I'm not joking. I will put a 0 in. It's the last day of the quarter, so there's no messing around here. You do it on Saturday, it says 0. So make sure you get your test done. Now, a couple of people that I just called off might be watching this a day later. Like you'll watch this on Monday, and you're like, wait. I know I did it on Friday, and that's fine. But if you are watching this video right now, and I just called out your name, then you need to take your test. You didn't take it yesterday. All right, so let's get this show on the road here. Let me share the document and we'll get going. Oh, by the way, those of you that did take your test, it is in the grade book. As a class, we did good. A couple people did not do well, but for the most part, we did fine. Take a look at the calendar right here. We'll do 11.1. We're starting chapter 11 today. And then we'll have a spring break, obviously, and then we'll finish up chapter 11. There's your homework for tonight or over the weekend.
All right, it's third. So this might take a little bit. My print here is kind of stupid. Okay, that might work.
All right, here we go. I'm gonna, it seems like I do this every chapter and say, hey, this one's really important, but of everything that we have done this year, this chapter 11 is the one chapter that you will use every single day for the rest of your however many classes you take in math. If you go into college, the same thing. Negative numbers are every single problem that you do from 8th grade on up will have negative numbers in it. There might be rare occasions when that's not true, but every single time you do a calculation, it's probably going to have a negative number in there. So we're starting from, we'll assume that we're starting from no knowledge of what, and many of you do know what a negative number is, but we're going to start with the belief that none of you know anything about negative numbers. And by the end of the chapter, you're going to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with negative numbers. Now, you're like, I already know how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with positive numbers. That's true. Well, it turns out that the rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, when negative numbers are involved, are very different. I mean, very different. It's almost like we're back in kindergarten, 1st grade, and we're learning how to add and subtract. And then it's also like we're in 3rd and 4th grade where we're learning, where we're learning how to multiply and divide. It's that different. If there's one thing that I consistently see students struggle with, it's adding, subtracting, and multiplying, dividing with negative numbers. Somewhere between the 7th and the 9th grade, all students figure it out. But my job as a teacher is try to reduce that time lag. For the kid that doesn't pay any attention, they're not going to figure this out, and there's nothing that I can do. For the kids that are paying attention, that put effort into this, I guarantee you, I will show you how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide with negative numbers. Now, some kids in 7th grade will require a really good resource card, and they will not have the rules memorized. Yeah, there's rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing with negative numbers that are different than when you have positive numbers. So we have rules. Some kids memorize these really quick. Other kids won't have it memorized until the 8th grade. Most kids, I'd say 99% of the kids, have this all figured out by the time they get to 8th grade. Like, they don't even have to think about the rules, they just do the rules. But I will have lots of kids in 7th grade that don't have the rules, and it will take them a long time. I'm talking in like 30 seconds to a minute to do these problems for just adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing with positive and negative numbers. All right, so there's my wind up. Today's class is just an introduction to negative numbers. Monday is when the real heavy, or sorry, Tuesday, because Monday's off. Tuesday is when the heavy lifting really starts. So on Tuesday is when we get to the first thing. We'll do adding with negative numbers. We'll probably do a day or two of that, and then we'll jump into subtraction, new rules for subtractions. Once we have subtraction, then we'll just go right through the chapter, multiplication and division. I always, when I teach this in 7th grade, I spend as much time as necessary teaching you this. I don't think it's worth the effort or worth the time of going on to the next chapter if the majority of students don't understand this. This is so critical. Okay, here we go. 3 objectives, and they all deal with negative numbers. Now, it may seem when I teach this stuff that some of this has no relevance whatsoever to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, but you will learn that it actually does. All right, so think about this. If I ask you to add these 2 numbers, this would be like a kindergarten 1st grade question, and you probably did this very question way back when. You did the math, and you somehow got to the answer 7. So if maybe you can't remember how you were actually taught this, most likely you were taught this with a number line. And what your kindergarten 1st grade teacher said, you take the first number. Let's see, the first number here is 3. The first number here is 3. And your teachers probably said, well, go to the number line and locate the number 3. And he or she probably said also that the numbers get larger as we go from left to right. So they said, take the first number 3, find it on the number line. And when you add, that means you get bigger. Addition means you get bigger, and you get bigger by the value of 4. So you go from your starting point 3 and you get bigger 4 places, 1, 2, 3, 4. You wind up at 7. So the answer is 7. And that's how it's taught in kindergarten 1st grade. It turns out this does not work with positive or when we have negative numbers. Okay, we will have to learn a new way. We won't do this until Tuesday, but just pointing out this rule of this number line does not work when in this manner when we get to negative numbers. So be prepared. Prepare yourself for a new method.
I have a question.
Yes.
Does this mean our teachers lied when they said there's no smaller number than 0?
Well, in kindergarten 1st grade, that is true. It's not true when you get to 7th grade.
But
All
they
right.
lie.
They also taught you subtraction in those early grades, and they did the same process. 5 minus 2 is 3. None of us think about that anymore. We just say 5 minus 2 is 3. But if we use the number line method, remember the numbers get smaller as you go to the left. Our starting point is 5. We get smaller by 2. That's what subtraction means. And we get smaller by 2, and that winds up at 3. It turns out with negative numbers, this is not always true. If we subtract a negative number, it turns out, I'll spoil it for you, you actually get bigger. It's the opposite of what you would initially think what subtraction is. When you subtract a negative number, you actually get bigger. Now that seems crazy. I'll have to definitely explain that better when we get to subtraction. It won't be on Tuesday, but I will explain it. So I just want to point out that the normal rules that you have for addition and subtraction do not work with when negative numbers are involved. All right. The big but here is this, is that if we did 5, Jaden, please stop. If we do 5 minus 8, we run into a big problem using the kindergarten first grade model. Well, 5 is our starting point. If we get smaller by 8, we run out of numbers. There aren't 8 numbers to the left of 5. Therefore, we have an issue. And most of you know that, of course, this turns into a negative number. But if we count over 8, we only get 5 before we run out of numbers. So today's class is on those other set of numbers that we haven't taken account of until we get to 7th grade, the negative numbers. So on the number line, if we think about the positive numbers and the number 0, 0 is neither positive or negative. The numbers start at 0, not a positive or negative number. You count by 1. I didn't put all the numbers, but we get bigger by 1. Well, the same process can work if we go, instead of from right to left, from right to left, we go in the left direction. We go in the left direction, we encounter our negative numbers. And the negative number line looks exactly like the positive number line, just in reverse. And that's not a big deal to wrap your head around. In fact, you've probably seen this on many math teachers' walls, positive and negative number line, this one right here. And you probably already have a somewhat of a good sense of where do the negative numbers live. This entire chapter deals with the numbers that are to the left of 0, the negative numbers. How do you add, subtract, multiply, and divide? So in box number 1, Vea, and for the rest of you just in your notes, we're going to draw a number line. So a number line consists of, well, a number line, a line. So we draw a line. Lines have arrows on the left and the right. Smack dab in the middle of our complete number line is the number 0. 0 is neither a positive nor a negative number. It's the idea of you don't have any value whatsoever. It's 0. The positive numbers live to the right. And if we count by 10, and I should have reviewed my slides better. If we count by 10s, well, then the first tick mark is 10, but most of us don't count by 10s. We count by 1s. Negative numbers, if you're the same distance away from 0 on the opposite side, well, then you would be at negative 10. 10 and negative 10 are both the same distance away from 0. They are 10 units away. If we want to put extra tick marks, we can. Halfway between 0 and 10 is 5. Halfway between 0 and negative 10 is, take a guess. Somebody, anybody, take a guess. Halfway between
-5.
-5.
-5.
Very good. Thank you. All right. And of course, we could put extra tick marks in there as well if we wanted to count by 1. What I want you to remember is the entire number line. No matter where you start, if you move to the right, you are getting larger. Conversely, no matter where you start, if you are moving to the left, you are getting smaller. We're talking value-wise. Now notice, negative 10 and 0, right? If I go from 0 to negative 10, I'm getting smaller, right? Negative 10 is actually smaller than negative 5. If you think about just the numbers without the negative symbol, well, 5 is certainly smaller than 10, but when they are negatives, the opposite occurs. That the larger the number gets, I'm just talking about the number itself, not the value. The larger the number gets, the smaller the value is. Negative 100 is smaller than negative 10. Questions on that basic concept, the complete number line? Okay, some quick notes on the negative number line. For this year, our book will use this symbol right here to represent negative. So they will take a minus symbol and they will put it slightly above the number on the left. That's only for this year. If you open up your any high school book, when they write negative numbers, including 8th grade next year, they don't do that. They will write -5 as that. And you're like, wait a minute, that looks like -5. And the answer is yes, you are correct. -5 and -5, -5 and -5
They're the same.
They are the same. All
So
right,
I have a question.
sure.
So do we have to write it how our books write it this year? Or
You
can
do
we
not. You
write?
can write it. We'll put the negative in the middle, and I highly encourage that. I'll just say when you open up the book to do homework, you're going to see the negative. You're going to see the negative right here. Why are you not writing? You will see
Okay.
the negative right here.
So what would you like us to write down?
In this one right here, I just want you to write these two things right here. Negative above the left and negative in the middle. And
Okay.
just so that you realize that they are both exactly the same thing. All right, the other thing I want you to remember is the numbers get smaller as you move to the left. Notice negative 10 is to the left of negative 4. Therefore, negative 10 is smaller than negative 4. All positive numbers are bigger than any negative number, and all negative numbers are smaller than any positive number. 0 is neither positive or negative. All right, in yellow there was the point I was just saying. As the numbers get bigger, notice 8, 9, 10, we would consider 10 to be bigger than 8, but that's not how it works on the negative part of the number line. As the numbers get bigger, their values are actually getting smaller. Negative 10 as a value is smaller than negative 8. Go ahead with your question. Okay,
So I have a question.
go ahead.
So if 0 is not a negative or a positive number, does it have like a certain name?
Yes,
Or is
0.
okay.
So it has, we just say it has no sign. So if positive is a sign and negative is a sign, we say that 0 has no S-I-G-N, no sign. All right, so what are we going to do in this chapter? I already said it's all dealing with negative numbers, and all we're going to do is simply add, subtract, multiply, and divide. We will also graph at the end of the chapter, but the majority of the time we will spend on adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing. You're like, I already know how to do that. Well, you know how to do it with positive numbers. You do not know how to do it with negative numbers. And the rules are very different than what you already know how to do with positive numbers. Okay. So our whole goal here is this chapter is to understand the rules. I notice I didn't say memorize. Some of you will have them memorized, but many of you won't. So as long as the rules are in front of your face and a resource card, you can follow it, you'll be okay. But don't underestimate the challenge of this chapter. I'm not going to say it's an impossible chapter. It's not, but there definitely there's some work ahead of us. Some quick background information, write this one down. Definition, opposites. When a mathematician uses the word opposite, here's what they mean. Those are numbers that are two numbers that are the same distance away from 0. Numbers that are the same distance away from 0. And it's not going to be more than 2. It'll just be 2 numbers. 2 numbers that are the same distance away from 0. So for instance, if I pick 5, 5 is, well, it's 5 units away. It's 5 units away from 0. There's another number that is also 5 away from 0. What's that number?
-5.
-5 is the opposite of 5. 5 is the opposite of -5. Since they are both 5 units away from 0, we call them opposites. So when a mathematician, when you use the word opposite, this is what you mean. It means that you are the same distance away from 0. So that's our first definition. I said today is an easy day. That's not too bad. Tonight for homework, they will simply say, what is the opposite of, for instance, -2? What's the opposite of -2?
2.
Yeah, that's that simple. All right. The hard stuff starts on Tuesday. All right, we okay with opposites?
Yeah. So I have a question.
Yes.
This might be jumping in later. So when you're adding like negative
No,
2,
we're not gonna mess around with anything. We're gonna wait for the confusion for Tuesday. So I don't want to start that subject and without a full class on it. So we'll talk about add, subtract, multiply, divide today. All right, so 5 and -5 are opposite each other's. Remember, they're going to put the negative on the upper portion, so be ready for that. All right. Remember, we talked about the start of the year, natural and whole numbers. The natural numbers, I called them the caveman numbers. Those are numbers that increase by 1. Those are the natural numbers. And if we add 0 to that list, we get what are called the whole numbers. Well, now since we have negative numbers, we get another word. We have natural whole numbers. If we add the negative numbers, we get another one. So let's just define what that set of numbers is. The first thing, or the first bunch of numbers, we're going to call the positive numbers. So the positive numbers, those are numbers that are greater than 0. That includes fractions and decimals, just the positive numbers. So those are all the numbers that are to the right of 0. So any number to the right of 0, that includes like 0.1 or a half or 4.5 or 7. Those are all your positive numbers. Okay. We okay with that? That's a pretty easy one to understand. The opposite of the positive numbers would be
Negative numbers.
negative numbers. So it's the same thing. Those are numbers that are to the left of 0, including negative 0.1 or negative 4.5 or negative 7. Those are just the numbers that are to the left. And I said left, and the definition says less than 0. So their value is smaller than 0. They live to the left of 0 on the number line. Okay, we good with that? All right, if you include the positive numbers, the negative numbers, and 0, we get a new name for all of those numbers. If we put all of those numbers together in a bag, we will now call that bag the integers. The integers are made up of the positive numbers, their opposites, that would be the negative numbers, and 0. So now in your life, you now have a new group of numbers called the integers. The integers include all of these numbers. Now, occasionally I'll have kids look at this and they will think, well, the integers would be the decimal numbers. So integers, we're going to restrict to specifically this number line right here. So even though negative 1.5 is a number, it is not an integer. So these are numbers that increase or decrease by 1. So yes, negative 1.5 is a negative number, but it's not an integer. Integers are going to be these numbers right here. We call these the friendly numbers because the math with them is a whole lot easier than when it's a decimal or a fraction. All right, so the integers are going to be all of these numbers right here on this number line. And notice there's an arrow on the left and the right, so they continue. They go up by 1 to the right, and they go decrease by 1 if you go to the left. Those are called the integers. So this is the integer number line, the integer number line. Questions? This entire chapter deals with integers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, divide integers. That will include both positive and negative numbers, and 0. All right, so now for the absolutely, pun intended, new idea. Write this one down. You have never seen this before. This is called absolute value. It's the concept of how far are you away from 0. Notice that kind of sounds like opposite. Opposite is compares two numbers. Absolute value is just one number. It's how far is that number away from 0. And we actually get a symbol for this. It's an actual math symbol. It's new for this year. The symbol for it are 2 vertical segments. You see these? These are not parentheses. They look like parentheses. These are called the absolute value symbols. We will be using this when we add, subtract, not when we multiply or divide, but when we add and subtract, we'll be using the absolute value symbols. All right, so the absolute value symbols basically say this. It says, look at the number on the inside. That number is 5. 5 is right here. And how far is 5 away from 0? How far is 5 away from 0? Somebody?
5.
The absolute value of 5 is 5. In other words, when you see those vertical segments, all they're asking you to do is state how much is the middle between the 2 vertical segments away from 0. 5 is 5 away from 0. How about negative 8? How far is negative 8 away from 0?
8.
That is how simple today is. Now, occasionally I will have kids think that what absolute value does is it swaps signs. Okay, absolute value certainly does swap signs when what's on the inside is negative, but it does not swap signs when what's on the inside is positive. 5 didn't turn into negative 5. 5 turned into 5 because it doesn't say write the opposite. It says, how far are you away from 0? So no matter whether you're a positive number on the inside or a negative number on the inside, the answer to absolute value is always a positive number because that's how far you are away from 0. Tonight for homework, they're going to ask you to do some absolute values. It's not that big of a deal. You just simply say, how far is that number on the inside away from 0? Anyone confused? Okay, cool. The answer to the absolute value is always positive. No matter what's on the inside is positive or negative, the answer is always positive. So we're going to do 3 quick games today. The 3 quick games are game number 1. What is the absolute value? How far is 2 away from 0? Somebody chime in.
2.
Okay.
-2.
How far is, nope, we don't take the opposite. We say, how far is it from 0? It is 2 away from 0. How far is -3 away from 0?
3.
That's how easy it's done. 23.
23.
All right, and I don't want to beat a dead horse here, but that's how easy this absolute value is. 125,
125,
-14,
14,
and how far is 0 away from 0?
0.
All right, I didn't even have to explain that one. You guys figured it out. Good job. All right, so that's absolute value. That's the easiest game. Any questions?
Just put it.
Jaden, can you mute?
Jaden is muted. All right. Questions, anybody? That's the first game. Easy game. All right, next game. We're going to put these numbers on a number line. So I don't know how many numbers they give you for homework. It's 3 or 4 numbers. They're going to have you put them on a number line. Our number lines, there'll be no decimals, no fractions. So our number line will go up and down by 1. So here is how you do it. Step number 1, you identify what's the largest and what's the smallest number. All right, what's the largest number here of those 4 numbers? What's the largest
4.
number?
4.
4,
What's the smallest number?
Negative
-2,
I need a number line that goes from -2 to +4. So I pull out my number line. If you want to make the smallest number line possible, well, then you simply, you draw a number line. Okay, arrows on the end. You start at -2 because that's the smallest number, and you go up by 1. If I go up by 1, the next number is
negative
-1.
1.
The next number would be
0.
the next number would be
1.
and then 2, and my number line is not big enough,
4.
and 4 will be right here. So there you go. To put these numbers on a number line, you put dots on the tick mark. So I need a tick mark on, or I need a circle on 4, a circle on -2, a circle on 0, and a circle on 3. How long was that going to take you to do?
Like 10 seconds.
couple seconds.
A couple seconds, maybe 30 seconds at most. Now, if you want to see it nice and pretty, right, here you go. So the smallest number line is on the left. The largest one would be on the right. And we're going to go up by 1s because there are no decimals or fractions on this one. And then put circles where all they are. Oh, nice and pretty. Look at that. Okay. Next thing, what it's going to ask you is to graph the number and its opposite. Okay, what is the opposite of 3?
-3.
So it's asked me to graph 3 and -3 on a number line. So I go to the smallest number. The smallest number here is -3. The largest number is +3. So I'm going from -3 by 1s all the way up to +3. So -3, what's the next number?
All right, -2.
-2.
-1, 0, 1, 2, 3. Okay. So that usually the kids that will have problems with this is they'll simply run out of space. So give yourself enough space. Jade, make sure you're paying attention. Okay. All right, don't forget that we got to put dots on the two numbers that we're given. Does that sound like something you guys can do?
Yeah.
How are we doing on time?
We're doing great.
All right,
I
we
think
got
we have
7 minutes left. All right, we got plenty of time. Plenty of time.
like
All right.
7 minutes.
Last game is the most difficult one, and it's not that difficult. It's just weird. You've never seen this done before, and it's going to say find the distance between two numbers. What does distance mean? It means how many tick marks are between the two numbers. So when it says find the distance between two numbers, it wants you to make a number line. This is what it will look like. It says use an arrow diagram. Oh, well, I'm going to show you what that is. To represent each integer described. It says -3 starting at 0. In other words, it wants you to find how many tick marks are there from 0 to -3. So it says -3 starting at 0. So my starting point is 0 and I'm going to -3. Well, there's a problem. Well, our number line, if we like reading from left to right, starts with negative numbers. So when you do your number line, I want you to, no matter where it says to start at, I want you to make your number line starting at the smallest number. What's the smallest number here?
-3.
Negative.
So I start at -3 and I go all the way up to 0. That's my number line. Now the answer to this, it says that you are actually starting at 0. So I'm starting at 0. You see what I did here? This is the arrow diagram. I'm starting at 0. I'm going to -3. You see what I did there? Okay. The question says -3 starting at 0. I make my number line first, starting with the smallest number all the way up to the biggest number. And then I'm going to read it. It says I'm starting at 0 and I'm going to -3. How many tick marks are there between 0 and -3?
3.
And that's why the answer is 3. So this is what your homework will look like for these starting at some number, going to another number. Now your arrow needs to be pointed in the right direction. I'm not going from -3 to 0. I'm starting at 0 and I'm going to -3. Let's see that again. So it says -3 starting at +2. Okay, -3 starting at +2. The smallest number here is?
-3.
I start at -3 on my number line and I go all the way up to +2. Like I said, you might do this a couple times because you run out of space. Okay, my words here says though I'm starting at 2 and going to -3. If I'm starting at 2 and I'm going to -3, how many tick marks is that? Well, let's
6.
count them. 1, 2, 3, 4,
6.
5. Where are you getting the 6 from?
I counted wrong.
Because you counted the one that you start on. Remember, the ones you start on would not be the first one you count will be the first one to the left here. That would be a top 1. So it is 5. So 5 is, well, it's the distance between 2 and -3. There are 5 marks between 2 and -3. Now, some of you may question, why are we doing this? What does this got to do? Well, this actually has something to do with adding and subtracting, okay? And you'll see that when we actually get to adding and subtracting. So they're kind of prepping you for that process of adding and subtracting with positive and negative numbers. You don't need to worry about that for this homework. You just need to be able to do this process. Read this, take the smallest number, put it on the left, the largest number, put it on the right. And then read what it says right here, starting at 2, and your arrow goes in the right direction. The arrow doesn't always point to the left. Sometimes it could point to the right. Notice on this one. Okay, it says 2 starting at -1. So let's see, the smallest number here is what?
-1.
Okay, so -1 is all the way to the left. And then we got to go all the way up to +2. 0, 1, 2. But it says we're starting at -1 now, so my arrow will not point to the left. It's actually going to point. Where's my arrow?
Right.
To the right.
It's going to point to the right. How many tick marks between -1 and +2?
That would be 3.
3.
That would be 3. There you go. I think you guys are catching on. All right. Any questions on what I just did there?
No.
Cool, because we got one thing left. I'm not sorry, not one thing left. That was the last thing. So we did 3 things. We graphed positive and negative numbers on a number line. We found opposite of numbers. We also found the absolute value of a given number. There's a 4th one, and that was this process right here. Some of you may not do your homework immediately right now. You may be a day or two before you do your homework. You may have to review this video, probably not for opposites or absolute value, but for this process right here. Feel free to do that. Any questions on anything I did today?
I have a question.
No.
Yes, Jaden.
Okay. So, how did we do? How would you basically do an example of 2 starting at -1?
So 2 starting at -1 is right here in front of you.
No, but the thing is, why would the arrow point towards 2? Why can't it point
What?
towards 1?
It does. Well, where does it say you're starting at?
You're starting at
All right. She answered her own question. All right. Any other questions? Got about 30
No.
seconds left. Finished right on time here. You guys have a wonderful weekend. You can send me a chat. I'll have my computer up to about 8 o'clock tonight, and then I'll have it on during the weekend. I just won't have it immediate answer. But if you have any questions, Saturday, Sunday, or Monday, go ahead and feel free. I'll send you an answer as soon as I can. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday.
Bye, Mr.
Bye,
Chavez.
Mr. C.
Make sure you have your snow shovels because we're getting a bunch of snow this weekend.
Okay, I ain't shoveling. See ya.
All right. See you guys.
Bye.